My name is Monique Jewett-Brewster. I'm a shareholder with Hopkins and Carley. We are a Silicon Valley full-service business law firm, and I chair our financial institutions and creditors' rights group there, where I work with creditors like banks and credit unions, private money lenders to enforce and restructure their defaulted commercial debt. As background, I'm also a former chair of the business law section of the State Bar of California, which will become relevant as we get into our talk. And today's program is on visibility through publications. That's a video series presented by the CLA's Diversity, Inclusion, and Outreach Committee. And my guest and I, who I will introduce momentarily, are here to talk about very high concept, why you should author and get published. And my guest today is Robert Harris. Rob is a partner with Bender, Malter, Harris and Rome Banks. It's a premier bankruptcy boutique firm in Santa Clara, California. He is a leader in the CLA. He was a leader in the State Bar business law section before the CLA, and he's also a leader in our insolvency field. Rob is my mentor and sponsor. He encouraged me to get active in the business law section, and pertinently the Insolvency Law Committee, or the ILC, where we both wrote and edited the ILC's e-bulletins, or electronic legal updates, which we'll talk about a little bit today as we go through publications. So our background in publications made me excited to have Rob join me and excited to talk about this subject. And just as housekeeping briefly, this is the first video in the series or webinar in the series. So please stay tuned. There's going to be 3 more webinars presented roughly on a quarterly basis. The second will be, what to write about, although we're going to cover that very high level today. The third will be the process and the logistics of how to get published. And the fourth will be where you can get published. So that concludes my housekeeping. Rob, would you like anything to add before we kick off the video?
No, I think you covered it. Thank you for that very kind introduction, Monique. While we come at this from the bankruptcy, financial, and insolvency point of view, I think the only thing I would add is these are general prescriptions for success. And so whatever field you're in, rest assured, it works.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Rob. Well, so we're going to start with a very short, this is a 7-minute or so video that CLA recorded. Well, I gave just a few thoughts on why to author, and this was back in June of 2021. So no comparisons of how I looked 3 years ago. I think I looked more fresh, at least more well-rested. But it's a great place to start our discussion, and will be a segue so that we can expand on some of the points that I talked about. So Brianna, if you'd like to start our video, please.
Hi, my name is Monique Jewett-Brewster, and I'm a creditor-side commercial bankruptcy lawyer with Hopkins and Carley in San Jose, where I'm a shareholder and co-chair of our financial institution and creditors' rights practice group. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of the CLA Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee's video series on visibility through publishing. And I'll talk about why you should author and get published. Before I do so, I'll share that I had the honor of serving as the 2018-19 chair of the State Bar of California's Business Law section, prior to the State Bar's deunification and the creation of the California Lawyers Association. Prior to chairing the BLS, I co-chaired the Insolvency Law Committee, one of the BLS's more than 12 standing committees organized by area of practice or substantive law. And while on the ILC, I served both in the roles of publications chair and as editor-in-chief of the ILC's e-bulletins, or e-notifications of legal developments of interest to those practicing in the field of insolvency and bankruptcy law. So imagine my delight when CLA presented me with the opportunity to share my thoughts on why you, as an attorney and member of the CLA, should consider authoring works and getting published. Personally, I believe that my publications with the CLA and other organizations have helped with my professional development and in the advancement of my career. And I strongly encourage you to consider how authoring and publishing can increase your visibility and help advance your career as well. There are many reasons why lawyers of all experience levels should author and publish their works. To demonstrate your knowledge of the law and credibility as an educator in your field, use your publications to educate both attorneys and potential clients about current developments in the law and also to provide practical advice. As will be covered in later videos in this series, there are so many different topics on which you might consider writing. Whatever you choose to write on builds your thought leadership in that area, and thought leadership establishes authors as leaders among attorneys. Authorship also confers the prestige of the publisher to the author. So publishing with the CLA, the largest voluntary bar association in the United States behind the ABA, confers authors with the authority of and trust in the CLA. Publish to showcase your skills as a writer. Publishing demonstrates not only your thought leadership, but your skills as a legal writer. Authoring a well-written article or legal update communicates your ability to convey complicated information clearly, concisely, and in an unambiguous manner. Whether you litigate, document transactions or deals, or guide an organization with respect to its in-house business decisions, clear writing is key in good lawyering. As such, a well-written article is a valuable marketing tool because it showcases your good writing. And as will be discussed in greater detail in future videos in this series, the CLA makes it easy to author and publish your work. Publish to engage with your readers. Potential clients often look to Google and LinkedIn to identify attorneys with the skill set to address whatever particular legal need might be keeping them up at night. Publishing offers attorneys the invaluable ability to stand out from the crowd in a sea of qualified competitors. You can also use your publications as value propositions to other attorneys, both in and outside of your firm or office. Marketing to attorneys in your personal and internal network is just as important as marketing to external contacts. And utilizing your publications as a marketing tool allows you to showcase your expertise in the subject matter on which you're writing, without your coming right out and bragging about how knowledgeable you are. Publish to mentor and sponsor a junior attorney or to collaborate with a colleague. Consider encouraging junior attorneys in your firm or network to co-author publications with you. By doing so, you can actively help newer attorneys create a name for themselves and establish your own credibility at the same time. This allows you to open the door wider for the attorneys coming behind you, which is so important. Co-authoring with a colleague also allows you to share the work while you each showcase the other's talent. And there are so many CLA publications to which you can contribute your work, whether in the form of brief e-bulletin updates like the ILC, or in scholarly articles printed in the section's various quarterly publications. CLA's publications present so many opportunities, not only to market yourself and your expertise, but to collaborate with others in both mentoring and business development efforts. So the bottom line, from my point of view, is the more lawyers publish, the better they position themselves to generate new business, whether directly from potential clients or from referrals who trust enough in your expertise to send their clients and contacts to you. And that's a strategy for long-term success in your career at any level. There are so many reasons why to author. At the top, authoring legal updates allows you to stay abreast of developments in your legal field, thereby making you a more competent and skillful lawyer, which is one of the many benefits of membership in the CLA. And there are so many ways to publish with CLA. Again, from quarterly section publications to hot off the presses legal alerts of interest to your clients and other attorneys practicing in your field. I believe that availing yourself of the many opportunities to publish with the CLA throughout the course of your career will only enhance the benefits of your membership in the CLA, the Professional Bar Association for all California attorneys. Reach out to any CLA leader to learn more about the various ways to author and gain visibility through publishing in the CLA. Thanks for watching this video. My name's Monique Jewett-Brewster. I'm an attorney with Hopkins & Carley, and I'm also a proud member and leader in the CLA.
Okay, thank you so much, Brianna. Put a lot of effort into that video from a couple years back. I'm so happy we could take it out and dust it off. But Rob, I don't know if you want to start. I know we discussed kind of alternating our questions so that we can have more of an interactive discussion. And of course, we're going to have some time at the end for questions. But where would you like to lead off?
Well, I want to start at 50,000 feet.
Yes.
And the question that I get from people on a regular basis, particularly younger lawyers, is why should I invest time and effort in researching a topic and writing about it when I could be making my billable hour requirement? Or if you're a lawyer a little further along, why should I be trading billable dollars for my junior associates or for myself to invest, if you will, in a publication?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. And as we talked about when we were preparing, it's more of a long-term investment because as lawyers, of course, we need to make our billable hours, we need to bring in our revenue, but at the same time, we also want to broadcast the fact that we have this education, that we have this expertise. Publishing allows you to really speak to your thought leadership so that when you are billing, when you're out doing other things, your day-to-day practice, your publications are always there speaking on your behalf. As we'll talk about to various audiences from different platforms, your publications are always working for you while you are doing other work. So it's a really good investment, and I think one that is absolutely necessary for attorneys.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about the return on investment and how one goes about, if you will, picking the right fund and making those placements to generate maximal response. You've talked about thought leadership, and I think that's a really great place to start. If you want to show your stuff, if you want to showcase your wares, there are a few better places than doing it in writing. What to you, Monique, is thought leadership? Let's get into that as a start.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice label, huh? Thought leadership. I think thought leadership is understanding complicated legal concepts within your field, staying abreast of those legal developments and being able to communicate about them clearly in a way, as you said, as we were preparing, you mentioned it's also independent, publications, this is your view. And I make that clear, this is my opinion, right? If I'm speaking on behalf of CLA, these are my thoughts. These are my thought leadership, discussions that I'm putting into paper and sharing. And that is really, it is so important to be able to share your independent view. I mean, you said that as well. I'm going to turn the question onto you. What benefit have you received from putting in this investment when we're so busy with our day-to-day lives?
Let me start with the thought leadership question. In my experience, when you're writing outside of court, when you're writing for a publication, be it a blog, be it an e-bulletin, things we'll talk about in a minute, you get to say what you think. You get to say, hey, I think this judge got it wrong. You get to say, I think that the appellate court should do X or Y. You get to push for or suggest legislation. You can do things you can't do in court. Mm-hmm. You're not constrained by Rule 11, which for those of you who don't practice in federal court is the sanction statute, saying that anything you write has to be either within existing law or a logical and reasonable extension of that. So just in terms of thought leadership, it really is a forward concept. In terms of the benefit, which I think was your other question, and what I've seen from that, isn't there a song by, is it the Knack, one thing leads to another? I mean, that's really what this is. If you are writing on a topic, you can leverage that. You can leverage off something you're working on, a case, a brief, an appeal, a memo to a client, and that leads you to a point where you can write a series of chapters, if you will, updates. You write about a case at the trial level, and then the appellate level, and then the Court of Appeals level, and maybe even the Supreme Court level. So there are lots of opportunities for, specific things to help you build your particular brand, if you will, as the go-to person on a specific area. So, be it Purdue Pharma, and the federal torts claims that are handled in bankruptcy, which can lead to, all kinds of potential opportunities to write about, the religious abuse cases that are sweeping the nation now. There are opportunities. And as I said, one thing leads to another.
Yes, and since you mentioned Purdue Pharma very briefly, I thought, well, let me share, because I pulled up a few examples of publications. Purdue Pharma just being one of the cases before the Supreme Court, on which we are, expecting a decision very shortly. There are going to be opportunities, like you said, one thing leads to another. And as you write, you start with client alerts, or maybe even publications within your organization. You repurpose those and start publishing outside, externally, bar associations, professional organizations. The more publishing you do, the more visibility you have. And so the Beard Group is just one publisher, but it happens to publish something called the Turnaround and Workouts newsletter. And it's geared for people tracking distressed businesses. I only bring this one up because this is an interesting publication where really it was more of an article format. So if you're thinking, oh, God, I don't want to sit here and do a 25-page scholarly article, you can position yourself through publishing to have opportunities where people reach out to you and ask for your thoughts. And I didn't really write this. It was more of an interview. So that was just one example that is topical with Supreme Court and kind of outside of the box, and hopefully will make people think, well, I can publish, and there are a lot of different ways for me to do that. So, Rob, we talked a little bit about how writing, I guess, publishing is a career builder for you. And we talked about, as we were preparing, when you publish, it doesn't need to be a one-off. As the law develops, you continue to publish in a subject matter. And you've done a really good job with that, with the Small Business Reorganization Act of 2019 that just became effective in 2020. I can't believe it's been 4 years already. But when that hit the ground, creating a new chapter, again, I'm going to talk bankruptcy, but this is across fields. This is across practices, whether you're a litigator, a transactional attorney, academia, within government, you find an update of interest to your field, you write on it and continue to write on it as it develops, and you become not only a thought leader, but someone whom others go to because they recognize your expertise in that field. If you want to share kind of your experience with doing that, Rob, please.
Sure. Just to give you guys a tiny bit of background, bankruptcy obviously is a specialized field, and those of us who do reorganization found over the years that it was becoming more and more stratified, where you had smaller firms doing smaller cases and larger firms doing giant cases, primarily in Delaware. And Congress got around to fixing it, creating something called the Small Business Reorganization Act, which, without going into the details, makes real reorganizations possible within the reach of be it a mom and pop store or, any kind of company with debt up to, a fairly reasonable amount that covers over 50% of all bankruptcies. So my thinking was, and it has always been, that you got to have something where you're the person. And I started off with the Small Business Reorganization Act, studied it extensively. Within 30 days of the act's going effective, I had a 25-page analysis article out there, one of the first. And I put on a program in San Francisco, at which many people who now basically spend all their time doing these small business cases were asking me, well, what the heck good is this? And at the same time, I had creditors' lawyers telling me, what is this? This is legalized stealing. Well, there was a lot of confusion about the act. And so I have made great efforts over, 4 years. Oh, now I am scared. Over the past 4 years, every time there's a topic of interest, to be able to write on it. I probably put on 10 programs on it. I was invited to the National Association of Bankruptcy Trustees. 2 years in a row, I put on programs at the California Bankruptcy Forum, which is the premier conference for California and Western bankruptcy lawyers. These things, again, one thing leads to another.
Mhm.
And if you become known for something, and here's the hook into publications, then when you publish, not only will people read what you write, but they'll come to develop an expectation. They will look for what you write, and they'll want it in their inbox. And the key, and this is a bit of a formatting thing, but the key is to write something that people will see, that they'll be able to digest quickly, that they will open, because open rates in the publication world are everything. You want something that shows up in the reading window that gets people to make that next click. And so, anything over 50%, I understand is golden. Really, anything over 40%. I want to go back to something Monique said too, because I think this is just super important. Monique, you were talking about, writing for different audiences, and that's just so important. Aren't there different sort of formats and levels of complexity that you might use to target different groups?
Yeah, and that's something that we were talking about, as we try and make this program. So you learn through this program that publishing is accessible to everyone. You just have to find what works for you. It's across the spectrum, right? Do you want to publish to, say, other attorneys outside of your field? So like you were talking about with the Small Business Reorganization Act, how do other attorneys maybe see an update like this that they can take back and find useful in their practices? And for you to explain all of this in a 25-page article, that is what was necessary with the kind of advent of this brand new law. Conversely, for my clientele, a lot of my bankers are very busy. And so if that's my audience, these are my clients, say I'd want to give them this update, I would do it a lot more pithily, something that really is targeted to them, and not so much, hey, there's this really interesting, fascinating change in the law, but more so, this is going to impact your business, and this is how. And these are some bullet points, or these are the high level changes that you should take back to your organization, and just be aware that this is going to change some things in your line of business. That it would be terrible to put a lot of effort into a publication, and then you release it, it's published, but you didn't really think of the audience that you were targeting and if they were going to get value out of it. Because as we've looked at the click open rates, leadership and looking at, are people reading our e-bulletins and our publications? If not, what needs to be changed? You want them to open that content.
Yeah, I mean, let's drill down even a little more. I mean, if you were doing a program that was general for bankruptcy attorneys, of course, yeah, you'd go into all the minutiae and the details, and you're trying to teach other lawyers, bankruptcy lawyers, if you will, how to practice under this act. But getting more specialized, and this is why the CLA is such a perfect vehicle for putting out publications. There's a real estate section. So what do real estate lawyers need to know about the Small Business Reorganization Act? What are the key changes? What would you as a real estate lawyer want to know? And, maybe even more generally, like you said, with respect to your bank clients. Well, what would a bank client want to know? Well, what can you do to a mortgage that you can't do? What about bank regulations? I mean, what is it out there? And, moving to all kinds of different fields, what is it specifically? What are the top 5 things you need to know? Get people's attention and then talk about it. And you could do that in a single page publication.
So that leads me to the question of, okay, you mentioned CLA is such a great organization to publish because you can really kind of fine tune who you're going to read, who's going to read your content. If you publish something and it's published to, say, privacy law section, because you're looking at, the treatment of personal identifiable information in bankruptcy cases, but that the privacy lawyers are going to care about that, because there are issues with the draft of privacy policies and with what policies are in place when a case is filed. My point is, there are so many areas of overlap that CLA, when you publish with this organization, really gives you a head start in being able to reach the different audiences that you want to reach with your content. Because ultimately, it's great to be a thought leader, and it's great to build your reputation through your publication, but the point is to drive revenue. The point is to be successful. One point, I should say, there are other reasons to publish, but in this one, if you are publishing to engage with other attorneys, to become an expert in your field such that you will be top of mind for referrals, that right there, I mean, we're only at 27 minutes, but we could stop the webinar there if that would be the main takeaway. But we know that's not the case. So other reasons why we publish, you talked about development, right? And again, it's very broad, and I'll pause and let you expand on that. But development of ourselves, our own practice development. You just talked about how you did that through the Small Business Reorganization Act expertise, your publication there. Do you want to try and develop others within your organization, attorneys in other fields? Like, what are some of the benefits that you get by using your publications to mentor and sponsor other lawyers and law students?
Sure. Well, and there are a couple of ways to look at this. One is you develop your own skills. I find when I'm writing an e-bulletin on a particular case, I am always developing muscles in areas that I never knew I had. And so I learned something, and it's proven to be useful more times than I can tell you. Within my firm, and this is something we've done with CLA fairly regularly, we look to have our junior associates write as well. They may not recognize these benefits, but look, let's be clear about it. If you give them credit for billable time, they're going to do it in a minute. And it's helpful for them. It's helpful for mentoring in terms of the substantive law. It's helpful for mentoring in terms of the marketing side. Your younger folks will be better lawyers if they know how to do something other than cut up and eat the food that's on the plate right in front of them. They're out there bringing clients in, and that's what you need. That's how you make a successful law firm. But even beyond that, you're reaching out, and this is why CLA is so tremendously valuable. You're reaching out to people in other firms who are within your field. You're reaching out to people, hopefully, who are in other firms who do different things, and partnering with them on a particular crossover issue can be incredibly valuable. It can lead to programs, it can lead to referrals, and it, like I said, it just makes you smarter to do that stuff.
Yeah, no, all good points. And I will just take a couple of those probably out of order. But in terms of the mentoring and sponsoring, I mean, just such a wonderful example. I don't know if Sean is on today, but one of my mentors is Sean Christensen, who's a shareholder at Buckhalter. And early in my career, this was in the 2010s, maybe early 2010s, she invited me to co-author an article with her, Introduction to Receivership Law. And it was published by the Continuing Education of the Bar, CEB. It happened to be in the California Business Law Practitioner. To this day, if you Google receivership in California law, for some reason that article comes up, very quickly. Very, and to see, it was a great article. And this is when I was fairly junior, in my career. This is like 2010, maybe 2008 or so. My point is, it was so important, to what you said, to be able to show not only can I bill, I can do this, I can eat what's before me, but look, I can join my shareholder who I look up to and have, partner with her on an article that now lives on the internet, because we know now that nothing ever goes away. But that's also something to think about here. This is in the pros. There are plenty of cons, but in the pros of nothing dies on the internet, your publications don't either. And so to bring someone up behind you and to share and to show them the value of publications, you can do a whole lot by supporting someone like that, whether in your organization or outside of it.
Right. And not everyone stays with our firms forever. And so that person will later remember you and potentially want to work with you. And again, let's spin back to one other thing too, just in terms of building your resume. I mean, you've got a long resume, as do I, of publications, of programs you've done. And when clients are looking, they're looking at that. And when lawyers are looking, they're looking at that too. So it helps you with your referrals. And, I will add that it also helps you with, recognition. I mean, if you are applying to be a certified specialist or a super lawyer or, anything, it's there and it is recognized.
Oh man, that's a good point. Not even one that we really dug into when we were preparing, but the long-term nature of publications. When I started publishing, doing these client alerts, one of my prior firms ended up taking the client alerts and having them published on Mondac, which is a streamlined kind of content platform for domestic and international professional services providers. Those live on, in perpetuity as well, I suppose. But, it's very important to be able to show your value, to have that specific value proposition. Well, before I leave that point, to recognition, when I started publishing, I would have never thought that perhaps I would have to 20 years later put a list together of all of my publications that would be considered, upon my nomination to the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers. Looking long term, is there going to be some sort of, like you said, becoming a bar certified legal specialist, for instance? Is there going to be something on later on in my future where I've already built a record of publications that are going to help me, not only be seen by a publisher who would like somebody's thoughts on a legal update, but for consideration when I want to join a professional organization that shows that that is limited to people who have demonstrated their qualifications in this field, qualifications that include the education of other attorneys as well as the public. You're going to want to think, like, gosh, I don't want to start now. I want to build on what I've already started building, creating early on.
Absolutely. I agree with all of that. Now, Monique, aren't there opportunities that actually are a little more, I'll call them live when it comes to publications? Haven't you done a number of videos and even radio programs?
Yes, and I'm excited that you raised this issue, that you wanted to talk about it, because as we look not only at ourselves, where do I want to be in 5-10 years, we should also be looking at where's our legal profession going to be in 5-10 years. And I think just even the last 5 years, let alone 10 years, we've seen people are going to be searching the internet for lawyers with their skill set, so have those publications out there for Google and such. And as they're searching for our qualifications for someone who knows what they know, what they're talking about, if there are videos, right? If there's a legal talk at podcasts, right? If there's something out there where the content is even more pithy, than say an e-bulletin that maybe will have like a 750,000 words, something like a video that's just a few minutes long, that is so accessible. Anybody can, we've seen what TikTok does, although I don't know now if TikTok's still going to be legal. Who knows? There's so many legal developments. But my point is, definitely think about publication on a very broad level, because you're not, at least I wouldn't, sit and do a, record a video without preparing my thoughts, without doing a bullet point of what I want to cover, preparing that content. Same thing as you would do with a publication, but in a different media, which, as Rob, can expand upon, is growing by leaps and bounds in popularity.
Right. And, video can come in a lot of forms. You could have a video of a program, which is out there. Those tend to be paid, but I have started putting links to the past programs I've done on my website.
That's a great idea.
And they follow the publications I've done. I take the publications and I link them on the website. Again, sometimes they're behind a paywall, but they're there, and people can find them. The thing we talked about that I thought was just maybe the most effective of all is, what about a 3-minute video? What about the how-to? What about the nuts and bolts? Not everybody is, not every consumer of legal services is identical. There are lawyers, there are clients, there are members of the public, there are members of the news media. I mean, that's another bit. I typically get calls from members of the media at various newspapers looking for comments on particular things. Sometimes it's when you walk out of court in the cases of interest, and sometimes it's just, hey, we'd like you to give a comment on X or Y or Z. Your publications lead directly to stuff like that. And Monique, why don't you tell us a little bit about your appearance on Your Legal Rights?
Oh, well, Your Legal Rights, you set up that, you gave me that opportunity, didn't you? I'm trying to think, is this the legal talk? Oh, this was Michael Malter. I'm sorry, I remember that. So, Know Your Legal Rights. I forget the name of the DJ, but it was
Josh Borger.
Josh. Oh, well, no, there's Josh Borger is an attorney, a wonderful attorney, and a referral source, and someone who could also do a CLA talk on marketing. But he invited me for that talk. And it was really just to kind of talk about bankruptcy and there were 3 or 4 attorneys on the panel, so to speak, but it was a radio program. And it was just an hour to talk to the public about bankruptcy. And especially on the debtor side, it was great to have debtors attorneys talking to the public about how this could be a benefit for you. And then on the creditor side, if you're caught up in something like this, you have rights. And again, to prepare for something like that, I had bullet points. It was essentially a publication that was provided via a different medium. I will share one bit about the videos, just because it's had an awesome impact. But when COVID started, our practice group just thought, okay, they're going to be, we're still waiting for the tsunami of bankruptcies, but to the extent there are defaults and people find themselves and they're unfamiliar with it, let's have some nuts and bolts videos, 3 to 5 minutes, limited, that are, us talking to you. We're in our living rooms, so we're talking to you in your living room and just explaining. So here are the, this is how a bankruptcy starts, and these are how claims are treated or rights to payment. And I mean, fast forward, it's been now, I guess, 4 years or so, but the videos were so popular that our firm adopted them firm-wide. And so since we're a business law firm, and so all of our practice groups now prepare these types of videos, and they're on our website, they're searchable via Google, and we've had over 75,000 views, I think. I know over 75,000, I'm just trying to think of the time period, but I mean, it's just an example. Again, the humble publication, I have some information. I would like to make this known. How do I, put pen to paper and share that, or record a video and share that content? It's a great example of, how you would gain visibility, essentially through sharing your independent thoughts, your views on a subject. So Rob, I want to go back to something because I jumped over it, but the imprimatur, right? CLA again, I don't mean to plug it, but it is the largest voluntary bar association, but for the ABA, which is national. We're state. So you've got the CLA, you've got over 100,000 lawyers. You've got, for instance, through the ILC, which is just one standing committee of one section, the business law section, you have all of the bankruptcy judges in California who receive those e-bulletins and their law clerks. Like, so you've done this work. How can you, what are some of the ways that you can repurpose it? We've talked about the videos and podcasts, and as you repurpose it, where do you, what strategy, how strategic do you want to be in terms of who is actually publishing your content? One example, CEB, that wonderful opportunity to contribute to the organization that helps educate California attorneys, the bar. That was a great opportunity. What are other opportunities to repurpose, and how do you do so in a strategic manner?
Well, if I've got a particular topic that I won't let go of, like a dog with his bone, then I will make the rounds with it. I will go to, like you said, from CLA to the local bar associations, to bar associations outside of my immediate area.
Yeah.
I might go to, I'm a San Francisco and a Santa Clara lawyer. I might go to Oakland. I might go to Sacramento. One thing I learned from being BLS chair is that other states don't have nearly the density of lawyers that we do.
Yeah.
So reaching out to rural bar associations presents opportunities, and being that we're in a digital world, that can really lead to interesting collaboration. So I've collaborated with lawyers in Utah, in Idaho, places I had never thought to practice, but I was able to reach out and get things done. ABA is a bit more of its own animal. They tend to prefer things to come through their own standing committees, but like you're very well versed in how the ABA works. You're on committees there, and maybe you can kind of speak to how you match your outreach from CLA with what you do for ABA.
I'm more than happy, and I will not use up all our time on that. But being active on a statewide level, being active in CLA helped me make the jump and be active in the ABA. And so through some time, I've been active in the commercial finance section there, and I chair the loan workout subcommittee. And so it's really interesting to think about everything we're doing in the CLA and take that to my ABA leadership, because as you've talked about, ABA is a more broad audience. And so publications that have been published in the business news today, which is the business law section and the ABA business law section's publication, that caught the attention of attorneys in Phoenix, my colleague at Fenimore Craig, with an attorney in Nashville, a solo, an attorney in Alabama who's at a 15-lawyer firm. And we, through that article, and not just that article, but in drafting together, we have repurposed this through speaking engagements that we've presented on at the ABA Business Law Section spring and fall meetings. We were just in Orlando a couple weeks ago at the spring meeting on this panel, talking about different law and how it, in our jurisdictions, all because we like to author and we like to speak and we like to do this kind of, again, sharing our independent thoughts. Here's the law. I think the court got it wrong. I don't think we need to have this much public policy on X, to share all that. Not only is it fun and engaging, but then again, afterwards, wow, this person is a thought leader. I have a foreclosure because we've got real property in your state. I'm out of, I'm in Arizona, but I saw your article. I see that you've got experience in judicial foreclosures in California. Can we talk?
And I think that's, maybe one of the biggest takeaways we figured out in our prep for this, it's that sort of chain reaction outreach where you find people who are like you. I mean, 5 or 10 years difference, whatever, you're top of the field, and you come at it from a slightly different point of view because you're out in another state, or even another country. And so being able to interact with those folks just takes all of this publication and speaking to a new level. And I find that's, part of the most fulfilling aspects of this. One of my associates here found himself on a panel, or is about to find himself on a panel for the American Bankruptcy Institute, with two top district court judges, a bankruptcy judge, and Bill Rochelle, because he was the author of briefs in front of the Supreme Court. And, you know, notwithstanding what happened today, appearing in front of the Supreme Court is a fascinating experience. And should you ever find yourself there, and I will readily admit I have never been before the High Court, should you find yourself there, you might actually be able to trace it back to something you wrote at a certain point and say, look at this.
It all starts somewhere, right? It all starts somewhere. And so it's been years and years since we were writing. Well, you're still writing e-bulletins, but I think as the e-bulletin editor-in-chief on the ILC and doing all that work and reading all the content and helping to edit, you know, all of that laid the groundwork, just like our colleague. He was a prolific writer and speaker, and then that helped him be elevated to have his reputation precede him, and he ended up at the institution you've got in your background there. You know, as just one much smaller example, but one of the California bankruptcy judges who get the ILC's e-bulletins had seen, you know, the fact that when you write, your name is on it. As you edit, your name is on it, and you become a known quantity. And so when that judge had put together a panel on the new California homestead exemption law that took effect in 2021, that judge from the Central District, the LA area, reached out to me because he knew me. I appeared in front of him every once in a while, but he knew that I knew this subject matter. Possibly I'd maybe written an e-bulletin on it. And so to be able to be asked, you know, it pays dividends. You may, for a while, you'll always be in a position of proposing, like, I'd like to publish this here. You know, I have a proposal to publish this, but once you've been doing it long enough, they start coming to you. The same thing with the opportunities for speaking engagements. You know, eventually people are going to be coming to you to publish. And again, that's just that shows that you are a thought leader, that you know your stuff, which is what we all want to do across practice areas. You know, just an example, really, and I'll say it, and then I'll end on this, turn it over to you. But I know we talk because our perspective is one from litigation. I have the chair of our corporate department here has been providing so much information on the Corporate Transparency Act and how that's going to impact all of our clients. You don't always have to, and I don't want to turn you off from publication, but you don't always have to draft what you share as a value proposition. That is not my forte. But to be able to take my colleague, you know, my colleagues here in my office, my colleague in the practice area, but essentially be able to take something of value and to say, you know, either I drafted this is perfect, that's the best. But to even say I was looking out for you and I'm aware of this update and here's something for you, here's a publication that you might find helpful, is also something that's valuable.
Yeah, I'm gonna expand a little bit on one point, and unfortunately I'm going to tout the ILC e-bulletins again. But for those of you who don't know, the Insolvency Law Committee through the CLA and the Business Law section has written case and statutory updates for, gosh, it's been a couple of decades. And you know, there have been as many as 100 in a year, I think.
Yeah.
And it's sort of expanded. It's become, there's a name brand Insolvency Law Committee bulletin that's published through the CLA, and there's another option through the judge for whom Monique clerked to actually write for the West Commercial Finance News.
Yes.
And so we publish in both areas. And what is so amazing about all this is judges, bankruptcy judges, tout the virtues of these. They talk about them in court. They hold them up and they say, I read these. And some of the judges have even quoted them because the analysis is so good.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to be able to put a publication out that's quoted and relied on by judges is just incredibly valuable. And I made this point before, but I'm going to make it again. Remember, when you're writing these, you're free to say what you want. Hopefully you don't make a career of slagging bad decisions by judges, although I've done one or two of those. But talk to them about where they should go, to invite them to rule on a particular issue, be it a flaw in the form subchapter 5 plan, or a hole in the law where maybe it's been ruled on by other circuits, and you don't want them to follow those circuits. You think there's a better course within your own circuit. You can have an effect. You really can. And so to me, that is, again, one of the most valuable parts of this. Maybe it doesn't lead to dollars today, but boy, oh boy, do your colleagues respect you after something like that?
Speaking of respect, I mean, that isn't a word. I don't think that actually came out during our preparation. We talked about reputation and thought leadership, but respect as a leader in your field makes me think about the work that you put into the business law section's handbook on the on assignments for the benefit of creditors. Under California law, ABCs, you Google, and this is it's a bankruptcy alternative. Again, we are speaking to you, you're our audience, but we're also speaking through our lens. But my point is, it is a handbook on a bankruptcy alternative that talks about everything from soup to nuts. It's a nuts and bolts type of handbook. It is published by the business law section of the CLA. It is available for purchase on the CLA's catalog. Your publications can go a long way in helping you gain respect from others in your field as an expert on the subject matter on which you're writing.
Yeah, thanks for raising that and embarrassing me.
It's a great example, because there's so many different kinds of publications, a practice guide, a handbook. If you really care a lot, there are opportunities with CLA, with
Right.
CEB to prepare checklists, chapters and practice guides. So I had to share that because that's a great one.
Well,
That again is non-billable, but all the reasons why you want to put time into doing something like that.
Writing a chapter of a book is hard, and writing it in your field is harder because everybody's going to be looking at it. But it is probably, to me, the longest lived publication you could have, because books don't get published, books get updated.
Yes.
And so, every 4 years, the ABC handbook and guide is updated. Monique and I have colleagues who are asked to write and update chapters in Collier on Bankruptcy, which is sort of our Bible. But think about that, because it's a lot of work, but I don't know a better way to get attention and respect than to be part of the primary academic curriculum, if you will, for certain parts of our fields. So, be you in the corporate field, the partnership field, the nonprofit field, whatever, think about committing some time to do it. And, if it's 150 or 200 hours, which that's, I think, what I spent, when you look up on that shelf and somebody says, "Hey, where's the handbook? I need it," you'll have your copy and you'll be able to say, "Yeah, here it is," or you can send it to your client or whatever. It's a good one to have.
Yeah, that is a good example as well. I'm trying to keep my eye on the time just to see if there are any questions, but I know we also had a lot of ground to cover. Is there anything that I have not prompted you on, something that you really want to leave with our audience today? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of great takeaways, but is there anything in particular that you'd like to share to leave our audience with today?
Just right. Find a topic, find something you love. Don't force it. Find something you love, find something you may have worked on and thought, "Oh, that's wrong," or "That's not developed," or "I'd like to say more." Because again, if you're doing your job as a lawyer, you're staying within the four corners of where you're supposed to be and not coming up with wild theories. Well, boy, oh boy, we're telling you, give us the wild theories. CLA will help you. We've got editors, we've got writers, we've got effectively publication agents who will get the word out for you, and working through the standing committees and the publication chairs, we can help you make a name for yourself in all the ways we've just talked about.
That is excellent. And I think I've really got nothing more to add on that other than to plug the other series, the other videos coming out in this series. Again, I think it's worth repeating. The next topic is going to be what to write about, right? We've kind of talked about all the various reasons why you should author and kind of like you said, Rob, 50,000 feet high level. But, well, what else should I write about specifically? Or maybe I'm not a litigator. I may not have felt like I heard specifically what I, as a government lawyer, might be wanting to write about, or a banker. They're going to be covering that in the next series, or the next video in the series. The process and logistics of getting published, you all in. Thank you, Rob, Monique. I get it. How does one start? That's also going to be covered. And then again, as Rob talked about, CLA is the best organizer. We're not doing this just because this is a CLA branded program, but CLA really is one of the best organizations to get involved with if you're interested in publishing, because I would say you're not going to find many other organizations that can rival the breadth of what you can write on and the ways that you can move your content out. So look for those other videos coming up in the series. And I see we've got just a few minutes. We're not MCLE, so that's great. We could end early, but we've got a few questions.
Tony has a question.
Yeah,
What do you think about the social media platform to publish writings? Oh, that is a great one.
Yeah.
Yes, we love social media. We were talking a little bit about lawyers on TikTok. People like me, fuddy-duddies. I'm in the gee, I like Facebook. But I think, in my experience, and I used to sit on the social media subcommittee back when there was such a thing.
Yes.
I find that LinkedIn might be the most effective platform. It's the most subscribed to by business users, as far as I can tell. And there's a connectivity that really seems to be effective. CLA can help with that. Monique, what are your thoughts?
Oh, no, I mean, I absolutely, Tony, great question too. For instance, CLA, I think all of the sections, but I know the business law section has a community on LinkedIn. And I haven't done it lately simply because there's not enough time in the day, but I remember it would be interesting to go on. The same people that maybe we would see at our meetings, you could have conversations with, you could have discussions with online. Not only is that public so that everybody can be a part of it, but if it sparks your interest and you think, well, actually, I want to write an article on that, something very short, you can publish that on LinkedIn. It lives on your webpage, and I think it's also searchable. It comes up on Google. So my point is, even if you think, well, I don't want to publish something that is for CLA. All right, so be it. Publish for yourself. Publish on LinkedIn. Make sure that you are getting your name out, whether that's through CLA or anyone else. Although we're plugging CLA because CLA can really help you elevate yourself strategically. But social media now, I don't think there's any cheesiness anymore. It's almost expected. If you Google someone and they're a ghost, it's almost like, well, is there nothing about this person online? So you want to have something that you control and is in your voice, and publishing is a great way to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look at online as to where people these days get the majority of their information. It's shocking. TikTok is up to like 40%. So Monique, I'm sorry, but we may have to create an insolvency TikTok dance for you.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And number one, I was thinking maybe a page, like, okay, maybe we'll go on to TikTok. There won't be no dancing on my part, but isn't that amazing though, that lawyers have started publishing even on those types of platforms, because there's value in it. It really is thinking broadly about, again, who you want to reach, in what manner, and how you do that.
And CLA can help. I mean, they actually have a marketing department and some very skilled people who we've worked with since we left the state bar to develop that. So you give us an idea and we'll run with it.
I don't know a better way to end our program on that high note. Thank you to Tony, and thank you for the rest of the CLA. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. And we are both reachable with any questions. As you can tell, we love to talk about publications. So if you have any questions that come up afterwards, please reach out to either of us. We'd love to be a resource.
Thanks, everybody.